Okay, this is the title. Yo, hang on. We're now officially starting. This is the title of today's class. I'm really looking forward to it for multiple reasons. In part because Lori, Dr. Mulvey, is here with us. And, we've been kind of exploring some new ways to work together. We've been working together for how long? Forever?
Yeah, forever.
Okay, wait. Let's make sure.
I'm just putting it on. Yeah.
All right.
Is that it now?
Yeah, I think you're good. Okay, forever. So
decades,
many decades. So we're continuing to explore that, and I've been trying to wrangle you to spend more time in Social 19 forever. And so we're doing that. So you're going to see more of Lori.
But wait, to be honest, can we be honest?
Yeah, be honest.
You always say that. But to be honest, so we've been working behind the scenes a lot, and we're exploring being a little more, on the scene together, but we don't know what that looks like. So being honest means we don't know what that looks like, so you may see me, you may not. Who knows what?
You got to use that.
Who knows what it looks like? So you'll see. By the end of the semester, you will know what we know about how we're going to work together, because we're not sure yet. So we just wanted you to know that.
So the title of this class comes really from you gave a talk last night, and you at some point after you were speaking about the work that you do at World in Conversation, and somebody at some point said to you, wow, it seems like you're really very capable of taking so many different positions. So, but I want to know what you stand on. What do you stand for? Like, what's a hill that you're willing to die on, so to speak, as they say? And you said,
fairness.
Fairness. I just want fairness. And why?
In other words, equity.
Equity.
Equity. Yeah.
Why? What? Can you just say something about where that comes from?
Don't all kids have that thing that they're just like, it's not fair, right? Like, I don't know. It comes from that. It comes from just, if things aren't equal, if we're all not meted out with equal gifts and curses and whatever, then at least life should at least be fair. And I just want it to be fair.
So that people
I don't know where it comes from. It just is.
So that people, for example, who don't work hard actually don't get ahead.
Yeah, that's the world I think I would want to live in.
Okay, and people who are nice get ahead, and people who are mean and stupid and do really dumb things.
Even though there aren't that many people that are mean and stupid, but just it seems like, the whole idea of merit, like we should get, a gift or get rewarded for good things. It's not how it works, right? It's totally against all wisdom traditions about how life works, right? But I just would love to see fairness, and so I like to move toward it however I can.
So in a way, your life's work has been about fairness. And I should say that both of us are from the working class. Your mother cleaned houses.
Yes.
Your dad was an electrician who later in his career, moved up. But
we don't have careers in the working class, by the way.
Okay, later in
we
his
work.
life. But neither went to college.
Correct.
You were not expected to go to college.
I think they hoped I would go to college.
Yeah.
That was a big hope for me.
But at some point you dropped out, and they were like, awesome, that's fine, whatever. They never said a word to you. Okay. All right. And you dropped out to be a secretary at a law firm. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so we're the same, man. You know what I mean? We're the same. And so, and I say that because it's really important that, people see us, okay, you're these two white academics at Penn State. You've gotten all sorts of whatever it is in your life. And so the conversation we're going to have today, it's important that we hold that in
That's
in
where
place.
we start.
Okay. So can we have our 3 volunteers up, and you can have a... So I'm gonna summarize. No, you can just hold on to that. I think it's better. Or you can just when you talk, just hold that. All right. So y'all, can we go to the next slide? Well, first let's do the quiz. Sorry about that. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, the three of you. You're going to have to really hold it. This guy's going to hold it down here.
Oh, yeah?
All right. Arjun's going to hold it down, and Jay's going to hold it down. You are. You got it. All right. Don't forget, if you can't make it happen, just do your selfie. All right, so listen, I want to go back to the past few classes. Everybody got the code? You're good? I want to go back to the past few classes. So we started with, all right, go ahead. That's good. D, E, I, and B. And diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not inequality and inclusion, equity. So equity is about fairness. And as Lori said, and this is really important, that this is when we think about DEI programs and DEIB programs.
Can we test out a hypothesis right now?
Yeah, all right.
Okay, wait. So
You just have to hold that mic close, okay?
this has nothing to do with what you're talking about.
Okay.
So Sam and I have an argument between us, which is when people are talking in the class, this is where the argument comes from. When people are talking, Sam leans towards thinking that they're talking about the class material. I lean towards thinking that you're not talking about the class material. We don't know what one is true, but in this moment, I do think I have a point on my side because you haven't even said anything yet.
And they're talking.
And people are talking. So just saying, we're trying to pay attention to that. So if you all have an insight at any point, please let us know. Right, Sam?
That's right.
So far I'm winning.
Don't let Lori win the argument, okay? So she wins most arguments that we have. So just today, anyway, while she's here. All right, so the most important thing is when we think about DEI, we're thinking about equity. It's not inequality, it's equity, right? So the problem, if you go to the next slide, you can just stay right there. So the problem is we're dealing with this struggle with understanding differences, understanding human behavior and differences in human behavior. So human behavior is shaped by things that are internal to us, how our motivations, how we think about things, how, all the stuff, our desires, our willingness to really push ourselves to do uncomfortable things, all of that, which in the end equates to responsibility, okay? Or over here, we have all of the behavior that is shaped by factors and forces outside of our control, structure, the history that our people went through, the history that our families went to, other people's decisions that impact our lives. I live in a community and some big corporation comes in and just buys up all this land and they start polluting the entire community. And so many people in our community that used to be healthy suddenly are getting sick. And it really destroys the community. And then the community just spirals into just chaos. And then you can't say, well, the people just spiraled into chaos. Like the corporation that started polluting the community had something to do with that. So over here, the person who wants to really be healthy and do the right thing and, all the good stuff, their behavior is being shaped by what that corporation did. So the two are going together. And yet at the same time, well, even though the corporation did that, the person over here can decide, well, am I going to just fall over or am I going to go fight the corporation, let's say, okay? So this is important. You got to hold those two things. Next one. Then I looked at this question, and it's showing that in the class that deals with race and ethnicity in groups, we see these big differences. So you have to say one of two things. You either have to say, well, what accounts for Native Americans, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans. This is going to be true all over the world. Different countries, Haitians, Dominicans, people in Vietnam, people in Liberia, wherever we want to go. There's something about them that they're all making decisions to stay poor or do things that keep them poor. They're all doing that, and they just happen to all do it. There's something about them, there's something about their families, something about their culture, there's something about something. Or I'm a sociologist, and I think, it's interesting to look at people in that way, but it's kind of interesting to think that, wait, all Native Americans just decide that it's really okay to just, not all, but such a large number of Native Americans just think it's okay to be poor? Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, something. That doesn't make sense to me as a sociologist. So I think, well, some do, and many do, and at some level they do, but there must be other things going on, because I don't know how else you could explain that. So I gave the example of Asians. Arjun, you remember? Like, yeah, you people from especially South Asia started coming in large numbers 2 decades ago, 2.5, 3 decades ago, coming with college degrees, coming with professional degrees, and so on. So they naturally just started moving ahead of other people who had been here, in Native Americans, from the very beginning. So that's history. That's where history has certain value. All right? And then go to the next slide. You can see this. Next slide. Yeah, like these are reservations, in American Indian reservations. And you see, like, yeah, well, the U.S. government came and created these reservations on, for the most part, very poor land. And then we pushed the original peoples onto that land. Well, that has something to do with it. So that's the structural stuff of inequality. But now we got to explain this, because we got to figure out what to do. What are we going to do? This is the equity. DEI, diversity. We have a lot of diversity. We have actually a fair amount of inclusion, because you can't even say in most all around the world, in most places in the world, inclusion and belonging are things that people really embrace. But we got this equity thing. So now what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? How are we going to, okay? So
you're saying, how do you create equity, fairness out of inequality?
Yep. Mm-hmm. How do we create equity and fairness out of inequality? Knowing you're going to hold these two things together. All the personal stuff, personal decisions, personal motivations, personal responsibility, all that stuff. And then you got to hold the other on the other side. All right? So now, can you go to the next slide, and then the next, go back. Yeah, no, right there. Let's go there. All right, so do any of you know why this is important news? Do you know why this came out yesterday? Do you have a sense of that? Wait, you got to introduce yourselves.
I'm Jade. I'm a 4th year studying international studies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Arjun. I'm a 2nd year studying computer science.
I'm Colin. I'm a 3rd year studying cybersecurity.
Okay. All right. Jade, Arjun, Colin. Right? Okay. Do you know why this is important?
Last year, affirmative action ended, and certain people thought that it would increase their chances into getting into certain universities.
Affirmative action. Which affirmative action?
Affirmative action as in, like, your race is considered when you apply to college?
When you apply to college.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Supreme Court said, no, can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so this article pretty much shows that for certain people at least, affirmative action ending didn't improve their chances on getting into these universities.
Well, here's the thing. Not all schools have reported their data yet. This just happened to be an article that showed up in the New York Times. Okay, for some schools are reporting that it hasn't. It appears to be. It's not having much of an impact at all. So the idea is, do either of you want to add to why this is a big issue? Or do you want to, we'll just go? We'll go. All right. So the idea is that the Supreme Court said, hey, you can't, universities, when you're deciding whether to admit applicants in the United States, you can't look at their race. You can look at all sorts of things. You can look at their records, you can look at where they're from, you can look at their school records. I mean, all of this, but you can't look at the race. It's just not fair. Because what appears to be happening is, it appears to be that people are not treating some people with equity. It's an unequal system. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, you made a good argument. Okay, so we're going to abandon that. All right? Now,
But wasn't affirmative action and isn't affirmative action an attempt to address inequality and create equity?
let me ask Colin, what's affirmative action in a sense? How is affirmative action an attempt?
Repeat after me.
No, how is affirmative action an attempt to bring about greater equity? How's it work in college admissions?
It's supposed to help those who are from a, less, it's so take it for instance that people from a higher class, like upper middle class, are.
No, hang on. I'm going to help you. The word you were going to use and you didn't use that you were looking for is historically disadvantaged groups.
Yes, yeah. So historically, it's to help historically disadvantaged groups, and it brings about more equality in that certain direction. So
how's it going to bring about greater equality? How do you think? Any of you? How's affirmative action going to help bring about greater equality? How's it? Yeah, no, we're not going to touch fairness yet. How's it going to bring about greater equality?
I think it's just the fact that it takes into consideration certain historical and societal things that have happened in the country.
And then?
Like, for example, like if you're black, it takes into consideration that, like the data we saw earlier about the median, that like you may have not grown up in a neighborhood, for example, that had certain programs in place at your high school.
Okay.
So when they see that you're black on your application, they can be like, maybe they didn't have as many opportunities as the white person that grew up in an affluent neighborhood.
All right. Okay. Hey, I want to ask a question. Arjun, can you look at her and see? Do you know what her ancestry is?
No.
Well, take a guess.
Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, dude. Oh my God, this guy. You're from India, right?
I mean, I was like born here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're born here. Do you think you're not allowed to do that?
I mean, isn't like assuming like bad? Like, isn't that like the thing that's like? Yeah.
See, hey, white people, it's not just us that has learned that we're not supposed to look at people and make assumptions. Everybody has taken that on. Dude, you're allowed to. This is a class on race relations. You can look at people's faces. You can look at Colin. You can look at her. You can look at me. And you can just, I'm just curious where you think what her ancestry is, her background.
Like Jamaican?
Jamaican.
Maybe.
Colin, what do you think?
I'm gonna say. I don't know. I would agree with Jamaican a little bit. I'm not really too good at this.
That's an easy way out. All right, good. Can you get a close-up? Yeah. All right, go ahead. Tell them what your ancestry is.
Okay, so my mom is Puerto Rican and Mexican, and my dad is black and white.
Okay. All right, so listen. Now, what's the equity issue with regard to affirmative act, of regard to admissions and enrollments? What's the equity issue? What's the Supreme Court saying? Why'd they rule against this? Yeah. Is that a fair question? Is that a good question, Lori?
Why'd they rule against it?
Yeah, why'd they rule against? Why'd they say, like, no, you can't use this, race and admissions? What are they seeing?
Like, all right, like as like a like of Indian descent or like Asian, like, you know, I know like one of like the at least like this was something that like we saw a lot while applying for colleges and stuff, was like it was like the equality of opportunity, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like people argued that like no matter who you are, where you come from, you have like equal chance depending on where you started from, or like,
Okay.
I guess like, I mean, I just found this out like last class about the structural thing. Not like found out, but like it went more into depth
To start
about
thinking about that.
it. Yeah, but
Okay,
like, yeah.
So what happens if so we come along, Penn State comes along and says, Jade. Jade. Okay, you're Mexican, you're black, you're white. All right. We're going to like give you a little bit of something extra. What happens?
Like what happens to me, or like,
Yeah, just what's the consequences of that? What's the fallout for everybody involved? Remember, equity.
That's a huge question, by the way.
That's a huge question, but what's the fallout for people who are not Jade?
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
talk? Why is this important?
I think, why is this question important?
Why? Yeah. What is it? What makes this conversation about equity important? What is it that? What's the value?
Well, it's what we're really fighting about. We have all of this inequality, okay? And we're trying to rectify it. We have things that we know are unfair for some people. We don't know who, when, how, what, but we know there's unfairness. And we know not everybody gets a fair shake. And so we step into the system and we start moving it around like we're playing with blocks when we're 5 years old. We got those wooden blocks. And we just keep moving them around to try to get the right shape and make it, we're going to move this over here, we're going to move this over here. And every time you move something, it impacts something else. Okay. So I want to know, if we give Jade, if Penn State says, hey Jade, we're going to give you like we're going to advance you a little bit, what's the negative impact of that? It's good for her. What's the negative impact? Colin, what are people arguing? People who won the Supreme Court case, what did they say? Do you imagine they said?
Some people are given advantages over others when they have the equal merits to each other.
Okay. So you can assume that if we look at Jade and say, hey, you know what? We look at you, we're gonna move you forward. You got to assume 100,000 people apply to Penn State. You got to assume of all the people that they said no to, one of them is equal to Jade, if not multiple. But they didn't get looked at.
Colin, what's your example?
So my example would be, say that me and Jade have the same merits, same GPA, and we both applied to Harvard. It would be more before this happened, it would be more likely that Jade would get in over I do.
If you were exactly the same.
If we were the exact same merits, exact same certain type of class, it would be the affirmative action would put Jade over me because of the different races.
And so what's the problem with that?
I think there's like more to that. Cause when it comes to like at least Harvard, like it's really white. I don't know. Like it's
Actually, it's not that white.
not that white.
No, look. 37% Asian,
It's very Asian.
16% Hispanic, 14% black. It's like whites are a minority.
Well, I just think that like when it comes to black people, at least within our own communities, right?
Okay.
We don't see like us going to Ivy Leagues as much as like our white peers.
Okay.
Because I went to a white high school and they got into more Ivies than all the black students, and like we applied there too.
Okay.
So sometimes it's like not always true. And like, what about the other white people that
No,
have the
but
same
there's an
stats?
assumption that you just made right there. Go ahead.
I grew up in a very white community too, and we had a very few minority people. Majority of the minority people went to Ivy Leagues than my white friends.
Yeah, I mean, what you
So
just...
it's not just that. It's different everywhere.
Yeah, but what you just said, you said, because we don't know if the white students performed at the same level as the black and brown students. So like we don't know that. So that's an assumption we have to be careful to make. Right? Here, let me ask you this. Let me look at the next slide. Let's look at a couple things here. Okay, here's California. Population is 15.5% Asian. Berkeley, which is the top school in the California system, okay, this is like the Ivy League of, I mean, you have Harvard, or you have Berkeley and you have Stanford, right? 40% of the admits in 2023 are Asian. Okay? That seems, okay, what's going on here? Go to the next one. New York City enrollment in the top high schools. This is 2018, and this is completely determined by test scores. Test scores. It's not, we're not going in and saying like, hey, what kind of clubs were you in? How many clubs were you president of? This is just test scores. These are the 3 top high schools in New York City, or 3 of the handful of top high schools. Look at those numbers, who are Asian. Okay? How fair is that? Arjun, how fair is that?
I mean, like, based off of test scores,
Yeah, go ahead, yep.
I mean, like, being Asian and Indian, you know that stereotype where it's like, yo, like your parents are like, you gotta lock in, bro. Like, you gotta, like, you can't be slacking in school. So, like, I wouldn't say it's, like, too much of a stereotype. It's low-key a fact.
Okay.
But, like, you know, me being brought up like that, I was, like, I had to score better or stuff like that. Like, I had to, like, score. So that's what I think, like, test scores wise, it's just how much, I guess, like, you prepare, study.
So here's
and
the
stuff.
question. How fair is that?
I guess it's low-key, like,
And
it's not
from
the
your
fairest.
From your perspective, you're seeing things that other people don't see.
Yeah, tell us as an Asian guy here, like, who went through this.
Okay.
How fair is this?
Like, it's not as fair that, like, the numbers don't look that fair. But at least, like, personally, like, I feel like it's kind of fair. It's like whoever put in the work, I guess. Whoever didn't.
Hey, listen, hang on. You don't have to be wishy-washy, really. Like, you don't have to say, like, oh, I guess. No. Whoever put in the work. Say it, like, own that statement, man. Whoever put in the work, yeah.
Yeah, like, if you studied for it, you're going to get a grade, and whoever didn't study for it isn't. It's like, you know, everyone has different ideals, I guess, based off of school.
I think you said something interesting, too, which was the numbers don't look fair, but I think it's fair. And I think that's really interesting.
That's huge.
Right? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, we know what it means in this moment because you're telling us. I think the numbers are talking about how disproportionately perhaps Asian students and families are studying or care about studying, right? But, the numbers, so interesting question about numbers being fair and reality being fair, right?
Dude, that's a very cool statement.
Yeah.
How about one of you? How fair is this?
It might not look fair, but I agree. If you put on, it's more about what you do for it, like when you put in the work. This is based on the test scores. So if you don't work hard to try to get to where you want to go, that's on you. Like you have to work to where you want to get to. That's what life is.
Jade, can you weigh in on this? You don't have to agree with them, by the way. 100%.
I mean, yeah, like if you work hard, like you reap the benefits of that. But I think this is just the enrollment on the top high schools. Like, we had to look at like where these people went to middle school. Like, it's not always like, some things start out small. Like, you can't just say like, here's high school and this is the enrollment for it.
Okay, so you want to go back and see something else.
Yeah.
So let me ask the two of you something, right? So you are over here. Say, yeah, listen, I'm going to assess fairness. We're going to go back to the personal decisions that people make. And you're going to assess it here. Yeah, well, you decide to work hard, or your family decide, Arjun, right? Your family says, yo, bro, lock the F in. All right? You're Indian. This is serious. Lock in, man. And you're like, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And so you're here. So decisions that people make. And you pointed to something, and I want to hear the two of you respond to this. What about, look at fairness. I asked, how fair is that? Look at it now from structural questions. What about over here? And Jade just gave you one thing to look at. Well, where are these kids coming from? Where are they coming from? That's a structural thing here. You don't just lock in, you lock in, but you lock in. What about the other kids who are not? The 3.5% black and Hispanic kids. Like, how fair, I don't want to lead, I don't want to do it.
Well, I'm actually also, what you said about your family, that's also not you, right? I mean, that's not fully individual responsibility, right? Somebody told you what to do. As opposed to a family that didn't tell you anything.
Like, for me, it was more like when I was a kid in like elementary school, my parents were more like, elementary through middle school, and like I guess like maybe ninth grade, they were more like they wanted to build my foundation, as in terms of like get good, because like in like your lower years, they want to build my like skills like that, or like mathematical skills or like academic skills. And then after like ninth grade, they were more like, you don't got to worry too much about scores, like just like, because like now that like you have that base, it's more up to you. They were like, that was definitely like a little bit different, I would say, like than like a lot of other people's experiences. But they definitely did care about like, all right, like, are you really totally slacking, or like, do you not care about school no more? But like, since they built that base for me, then I could like, they just kind of like was like, all right,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Like, they don't care as much about like scores or like where I go, because they already built, like when you're younger, they want to build that like,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But that still connects to what Jade is saying. Where'd you come from,
Okay.
right? Whether it's your middle school or your family, right, that gave you a foundation. I'm just saying it's a factor that you're asking us to look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted, can you, either Colin or Jade, can you respond to this question over here? Look at it through the lens of structure, the lens of history, structure, larger things, which includes like neighborhoods, all sorts of stuff, right? What your parents did for a living, all sorts of things. And then, how fair is that? How fair are those numbers?
I would say not fair at all. Because, like, for, like, people who, like, structurally, like, that may look like progress to us. But because, like, a school or university said that's not enough progress, like, kind of dismisses or diminishes, like, the work we put in, even if it's not as much as his.
Yeah, but how do you know? Like, but we got to measure this on something. Penn State wants to, every student they admit to this university, they want you to graduate in 4 years. And if you can't do it in 4 years, they want you to graduate in 4.5, and if not 5. They don't want you here for a long period of time. That's not good for Penn State. You might think, yeah, they just keep taking my money. No. It lowers Penn State's credibility and standing. They want you in, they want you out, and they don't want you dropping out. So you can afford to bring in a few people who like, yeah, we're taking a risk with this kid, but not going to do very many, because that's how it works. And so it's like, hey, Jade, yeah, we get that you worked really hard, but you didn't do it, and there's another school for you. Go to the school down the road, but not this one. You know, you're gonna go to school. It's not like you're not going to get into college. You're just not going to get into the college that maybe you think you want to get into. So now respond to that. But I worked hard. Do you know how many students after the first exam are going to email us, or at the end of the semester? Look at all these faces here. How many emails we're going to get, and people are going to say, I got a B+, but I worked really hard. And I'm like, what am I going to say to him? Tell Julie right in the, because she's going to get the email. Tell her what she should say.
It is what it is. Yeah, but I think when you get to college, it flattens the line almost. Once you get over that hill.
Oh, we got something for that in a couple minutes. But okay, you think it flattens the line?
Just a little bit.
Okay. Do you guys have a response to what I was saying over here about the structural thing? And I have to respond to a couple people in the chat.
So are you saying that they have, so say for applying to college, if it's at two different structural parts, but they have the same grades, and the one who has the higher structure gets in, and the other one, the lower one doesn't?
Here's the issue. You got people who are coming from really poor areas who never really had a chance, man. They don't have parents that went to college. Maybe they don't even have parents that went to a good high school. They got, including Asian parents, we're not talking white parents, doesn't matter. And they never had the chance, man, and they're trying and pulling themselves up and working so hard. But what's fair?
So are they applying themselves to their schoolwork or not?
Totally. Let's say they did, but did they? Not like Arjun.
Yes, but isn't that what the loans are for? The student loans to pay for the college.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
Okay.
If you don't have enough money, if you come from a background where you don't have enough money, where you come from a poor background, that's what student loans are for. So you can pay for the colleges.
Okay. So if you can't do as well, you don't go to one of these top schools, go to another school and work really hard and then go to some other college.
Well, didn't you say that they have both that they both worked hard, they get to the same score and they apply? Most of the time, it doesn't end up like that.
Yeah, no, I think that you can just ask the questions like, what do you do with the kids? Go back to the reservation. And the kids on the reservation are working so hard as they can, and they're spinning, and the schools are really bad, and there are no role models, and they don't have money, and they're not doing any college visits, and at best they're going to go to a local community college and hope. We passed many of them out in New Mexico and Arizona, these little community colleges in the middle of nowhere, nothing like Penn State or anything like that, and
Can I?
Yeah.
This is where you're falling into inequality and not equity. Not to say that that's not, the conversation isn't connected, right? It is. The point is, how do we deal with inequality, right? And I think affirmative action, as we know it, and as all of us have grown up in the consciousness of affirmative action, right? Because we didn't exist before affirmative action. Affirmative action is one of the ways we've tried to figure out how to create equity in the midst of inequality, right? And so now, so anyway, I just want you to be able to stay with what the question that you're asking, right? So this is what we're seeing is coming on the other side of years of affirmative action in college admissions, right? Wait.
Yep, go ahead. Yep, go ahead. No, keep going. Yep, this is what we're seeing. This is what happens in the world if we just let it go. It's it's just test scores, and
that's what you're showing us.
It's one is test scores. For if you come from a family of this culture, evidently Asian cultures that are going no man, you go. But what about the other culture? Are we just saying, hey, that's just the luck of the draw, man. You grew up in a family that isn't pushing education in the same way, so whatever. Which is fine if that's the conclusion we come to, but would that be your conclusion?
I wouldn't necessarily say that's my conclusion, but what I'm saying is that it's where they come from. If they have this, if they work hard and they do the same as the other person, like it's not going to be lower percent chance where they're going to. It's lower percent chance where they're not going to get admitted into it, like because they still get the loans and everything else like that if they come from the poor background.
Yeah, but understand that these things, it's a spiraling process. The first it's your education, then it's your internships, then it's your job, and then it's this, and then it's that, and it's where you buy a house, and then how much you have in your retirement account when you're our age. I mean, it's one thing after another, you see, so it's not just this one step. And so the question is, how fair is it to just let it go? And how fair is it? Where does fairness enter in when we go in and we start to micromanage a little bit? Micromanage, move things around.
Well, if we're sticking on the affirmative action thing, it's not just about poor background. It's about historical background, even if you're not poor.
Okay.
So you're saying even if somebody from a group isn't poor now, if their ancestors were poor or they were disenfranchised in some way, they should get the advantage?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's what the affirmative action does as well, not as just from the current poor background, but from what it does that as well.
So not that they should get advantage, but that's something that people would be thinking about. Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I'm just curious to kind of juxtapose this to the data we looked at last class with the amount of wealth. Because I think of, you can have two kids that are trying just as hard, but one kid tries hard and he grew, his parents are poor, and so the school he goes to sucks, and then so the tutors that he can get suck, and then what he gets needs to be provided, whereas you can be in a wealthy family that say the tutor the school provides for him isn't good enough, his parents can go get him a nice tutor, and that kind of spirals up, and you get, even if you're trying hard, both kids can try hard, but they don't have the resources to reach their potential.
Okay, so you're now in the structural place going,
yeah, exactly.
Fairness, how we decide about fairness and what is fair has to include some conversation about your background and because that matters. You can't just start wherever. It's like you're going to put a really poor person on the starting line right here, right next to I take the person in this class who comes from the poorest, most dysfunctional family, and I'm going to put you on the starting line right next to the person in this class who comes from the wealthiest, most connected family. And I'm going to say, okay, the two of you're going to spend 4 years at Penn State, and we're going to see which one does the best at the end of 4 years. And you would say, you might say, just like if we go here, well, the fair thing would be put you at the starting line, right in the same spot. Doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, anything. Put yourself right here and go. You're competing against each other. And what you just said is, no, you're not competing against each other. You're actually competing against each other, your willpower, your stamina, but you're also competing against your histories and all the things that are behind you and holding you up.
Yeah, just your resource in general. I mean, if you're a poor college student, you got to work, you got to do other things other than just study. But, if you've got daddy's money behind you, you live in a nice apartment, you don't have to worry about commuting or anything like that. You're set up and things are easier because you have that background.
Okay. Hey, let me respond to one thing. Go ahead, bro.
I was going to say, think about it this way. Someone worked for those connections and that money.
Okay.
It might not be you, or it might not be the person who starts off with other person that's poor, but someone worked for that money and those connections. So even though the person, like you're starting off on a different area, a different level than this person is, someone did work for that. So basically, if you're trying to put them at the same level, then basically all that person's hard work, all those person's hard work to get that money and connections got thrown out the window.
Okay, somebody worked for that. They had children. The children benefit.
But they do that so their children benefit from what they do. That's what parents do. So their children can use what they made to get further in life.
So Jade, that sounds fair. Like if you have a child, your child's more likely to go to Penn State than the child that your child's in school with another child whose parents never even went past 8th grade. Your child's more likely to go to Penn State. That's fair. It seems fair to me.
It's not fair. What's not fair?
I just think about let's say historical context, slavery, for example. It's the slave owners, they built all their money, and now we still see people reaping the benefits of that. Only some, I'm not saying a lot of people. But then when you see the freed slaves, right? They didn't even get 40 acres and a mule. So it's it's not fair.
Okay,
right?
but
Because their parent worked for it.
Okay,
Can I bounce off of that?
Yeah.
Think of everyone else though. I'm part Irish and Ukrainian. At some point, my family was oppressed by other people. So my ancestry still came from an oppressed background. So it's not just that.
Yeah, I know that. But I'm saying that when you talk about when you put people in categories of race, you have no choice but to generalize around it.
Okay, no, that's right. Okay, but now listen to this. Yeah, it's not fair, but there are only so many slots available. So are you going to be willing to say, yeah, all right, my kid doesn't have to go to Penn State. I'll send him off to a community college. Because I have this privilege, because look at me. I came from, my parents worked really hard, and your parents did. They're entrepreneurs, right? They worked really hard. They started out they've worked hard and they've done well. Okay, so, yeah, is that, how are you going to think about that? Oh, yeah, all right, I'll sit this one out. I'll let my kids sit this one out.
It's not about sitting something out. It's just because my parents always say make it work. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So yes, it's maybe it's not fair, but if someone that's less privileged got a better opportunity than I did, I just need to change my way to get what I want.
I got you. So you're just going to have to work a little harder. That's fairness for you. It's all right, that person got it, but I'm going to work really, really.
Not necessarily work harder, but just that's if you think strategizing your life is harder.
Okay. By the way, I want to respond to something.
Go ahead, you respond, and then I'll.
There are people on the chat who are saying it's just about genetics, and I want to say this.
Genetics?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not about genetics. By the way, hang on. It's not just about genetics. There's nothing that we understand about genetics that will explain these kinds of differences between groups. There's nothing at all. And you just gotta, maybe at some point in the semester we'll work on that, but there's nothing. Human beings these three people right here are 99.99% exactly the same. There's nothing about genetics. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the question that you're asking about equity and diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives aren't about individual people, right? And so there's always examples that we know, somebody we know or ourselves or something else where we're that wasn't fair. My friends got into a school and I didn't, it's whatever it is. But people that are putting these policies in place are thinking about a society and they're thinking about large groups of people, right? So with your, with the statistics that you have, you're not talking about individual people, you're talking about the status of large groups of people. Why are Native Americans as a group in this position, right? Not just why is this one Native American person and this one, right? So I feel in the conversation, it's first of all, I'm just imagining being the people around the world who make these decisions, who put these things in place, right? And some of you will be those people and will make those decisions and change society as a result. And now we're changing it again with this court decision, right? Just in this particular way. But anyway, it's making me say, what is equity? What is it actually? Not like how do you get the same thing that other people have, because that's how we're talking about it right now. Like I should be able to get the same education or make the same amount of money or whatever, but what's equity? Because equity isn't everybody getting the same thing.
So
it's that it's fair somehow.
So the city of New York came in and decided, hey, we can't just use test scores. We gotta find something else. This is too unequal. Once that happened, Asian families started to say, yo, hang on a second, man. Why are you penalizing us? Just because we're starting to send our kids to tutor schools. In Korea, it's cram schools, Hagwons. We're doing that here in the U.S. Why are we going to get hurt by that? And so they're the ones who really pushed the Supreme Court decision forward here to say, like, no, this is not fair. You're now penalizing us for our successes. It's like, why should they be penalized? Why should your people who, from your ancestry, your background, be penalized for their successes? Bro, can you go to one? I want to go to a different thing, but here, can you go to the next slide? Bro, can you say something about, you went to a Hagwon. You were, how old were you? Can you say what a Hagwon is?
Hagwon is basically a school. Another school you go to, private school, right after public education.
Meaning late in the day?
Late in the day, usually until like around 10 or later sometimes as well.
Uh-huh. So you were there, at 7 years old? You were going to Hagwons?
I came to the States around when I was 7 or 8, and I was already going to Hagwons at that age of like 6 or 5.
And you were studying till, like you go to school all day,
Yeah.
and then you go to a cram school.
Yeah.
And
that's when I started learning English, actually, at the age of 5.
Wait, and so you're going till how late at night?
I do not quite remember, but I remember the sun was down
Yeah.
by the time I got home, by the time I arrived home. So it must have been at least until like 6 or 7 at the age of 6.
So Koreans, like those of you who are Korean, you know this is serious. Like there's a reason that Koreans are so highly educated, because when you go to Korea and you go to, Lori and I went and gave a talk at one of the Hagwons with our, and it was serious, man. Yeah.
So to elaborate on how Koreans take Hagwon seriously, I was born in a working class family, as in like we took water from like the public water tap to save on water bills, and my family spent those money to send me to Hagwon, despite the fact that we couldn't even pay for water properly, so that we would be ahead in terms of education.
Now you got a whole country doing this, right? And that whole country is bringing that here, right? You got Indians who are coming here with that, and Chinese who are coming here with that, and Japanese who are coming here with that. This is serious. And people here think like, oh yeah, I study hard. I studied really hard to get into one of the top schools in New York City. Like, man, you don't even know what studying hard is. And you got these people that are studying hard. You got little kids that are studying until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And each of you went to Hagwon? Yeah. Wait, here, hang on. How late, wait, can you get, Yellow, can you get EG on? Wait, how late were you studying at night at the Hagwon?
Sorry, what did you say?
How late were you? Were you up studying every night?
Every night, like until 10.
Till 10?
Yeah.
What time did you start in the morning?
I went to school around like 9 a.m. and
Yeah.
I got out of school around 3. And
Yeah.
I had like quick snack, and right after that I went to Hagwon, like around 4 or 5.
So it's like you went to 2 schools
Yeah.
in one. See, this is like a friend of mine, Harry, who teaches at the Hagwon. So did you, and on the weekends?
Yes, on Saturday.
On Saturday? And then when did you start?
Around 10, 11?
When you were 10 years old?
Oh, no, like 10 a.m.
No, how old were you when you...
Like 3rd grade?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so listen, yeah, this is serious.
How many other people in here have gone?
Yeah, how many Koreans are in here? Did you go to Hagwons? Yeah? Everyone go to Hagwons? Dude, yeah? Of course you do. You do that, man. Bro, did you go to any after school programs? Bro, any after school programs? No? Bro, anything at all? Anything, bro? No. Yeah, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts or something? Baseball? I whined about CCD. Yeah, I went to with my friends. We had joint rolling contests with my friends. So, look, can you go to the next slide? I want to talk about this. Okay, so look at these numbers, and then I'll let you kind of walk us. No. Yeah. Listen, this is the percent of test takers, the percent of people in this country who take the SAT and score 1,300 or above, okay? Everybody who scores 1,300 or above, 38% of them have parents in the top 0.1%. 38% of all the people that scored above 1,300 have parents in the top 1%. And look at the top one. Look at between the top 1% and the top 1%. Add those two columns up, and then look down here. 2.4% of all the people that scored 1,300 or above were in the bottom 20%. Okay? Look, how fair is that? Arjun, how fair is that?
Like, when you say top, like, 1%, you mean, like, wealth-wise, right?
Yeah, wealth-wise. Yeah, income. No, income. Look at these numbers. You got 38%. This is probably 30%. So almost 70% of the students that scored 1,300 or above in the United States I think these numbers are from 2021, were from top 1% income earning families.
Yeah, that's not like the most fair
Why not?
thing.
What's not fair?
But like, okay, so like, I'm taking into account, like, with their wealth, they're using it for, like, putting their kids in, like, extra programs or, like, maybe, like, a tutoring thing or something.
Yeah.
When, like, people who don't earn as much are not getting that. And, like, or, like the bottom percentages, like, they're not getting that
Yeah, but
luxury.
we already said, if we follow Colin, that these people right here, they worked really hard to be able to send their kids to the best situation. It happens in Korea too. If you have more money, you go to better Hagwons. It's the same thing is true there. If you don't have any money, you can't afford any Hagwons. I mean, you can leverage yourself, but what's not fair about that? When do you want to go? How Lori, is that the question? How fair is this? Like, what do you think about it? Come up with a.
I feel Are you going to say something, Archie? Are you going to say something?
It might not seem fair, but people who come from, but people who don't have as high stat scores doesn't mean they're not going to get anywhere in life. Think of it this way: Kevin Hart, look where he is now. He had a 300 on his stat score, or 500.
But don't go with.
So it's like
don't do
you
individuals.
can't take the stats of an SAT and say that they're going to get somewhere in life, because people who score 1300s might not apply themselves later on.
Okay, here, hang on though. Dude, I scored 17 on the ACT. That was the 51st percentile. And talk about how smart you all are. You're paying a professor who scored 17 on the ACT exam to teach you something. That's pretty ignorant if you want to ask me, but whatever. Don't do the individuals. Go back to what Lori said. Look at the groups. Look at the larger groups. Is that the question of fair? What's the question you would ask?
when you look at those numbers and you're thinking about fairness,
Yep.
just what is your assessment of those numbers?
I think it is fair because it's the parents who paid and worked for their kids to go to these schools to do better on the SATs. I feel like that's fair.
Uh-huh. So if you basically you said it before, if you get a certain score, that's what it is. It's fair. I think you said that, or maybe it was Arjun.
Yeah,
I
went.
Yeah.
Bro, you're the first person in the entire class who actually speaks too loud into the mic. No, you're good.
So do you want me to put it here or something?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Just hold it close.
I went to tutoring schools too.
Uh-huh.
I didn't score 13.
Mm-hmm.
So it could just be like I know people who didn't go to the tutor schools and they got like much higher than 13.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying, okay, that's fair because this is the idea that what score you achieve is what you're going to use in your world to indicate what is fair, right? Yeah. I mean,
All right. That's fair.
that's what we're looking for is to try to figure out what is fair.
Yeah.
And you're like, however you get however you get the score, getting the score is what we're looking for.
Yeah. Arjun, you were going to say something.
Like, I do understand what he's saying about like the whole tutoring thing and all that, but like, if I could just take a step back, like we are living in an age where like the internet exists, and like for me, right? Like, I mean, I'm not top 1%, or like I'm not, like I'm like in the middle, like middle class. It's like I didn't go to any like tutoring thing or anything, but like YouTube, like all these like free open source things, like we could just use that to like. That like you don't need like, and like he's right, like I mean a lot of people who are going through tutoring, like some people's like their parents are putting them in there, they don't want to go through it, or like some people do or whatever.
All right, there you go. The internet is, and if you can't afford a computer, go to your local library and get on a computer. When you see, your question was, when you look at these and you think about equity and fairness, what do you think?
I would always result to it's not fair. Like,
Can you say really clearly, like, this is why it's not fair?
I don't think it's fair because it feels like you're penalizing people for not having money. Like if the excuse is like, oh, my parents' money got me tutors, like in his case, like the example he used at least, then it's like, okay, my parents couldn't afford tutors, I didn't get the score, so now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
But now what do we do? Like, what do we do? There are only so many seats. So what do the rest of us do? Because now we got to figure out a system here. We got to deal with the fact that, like, what do we do? Do we tell Colin down here, like, yeah, you know what, man, why don't you're going to just, you go to you're not getting in, we're not going to bring you into Penn State. I mean, what do you do with all these people? What do you do with all these people down here? I mean, the people who aren't scoring as high. What do you do with that?
I'm not sure, but like affirmative action was an attempt. It wasn't perfect. I think we can all agree it wasn't perfect, but it was an attempt to find a solution until we find a better one.
Uh-huh. And what, Colin, you were going to respond?
Like, I mean, like, I do understand, like, where you're coming from, like, totally. And I feel like, personally, like, if I was in, like, if I didn't, like, go through, like, the college process, like, with this, I would be like, yeah, like, it makes sense. It's, like, it is an attempt and all that. But, like, going through the college process and, like, as, like, person of, like, Asian descent or whatever, I'm like, oh, like, shit, like, I'm, like, kind of getting screwed, like, not screwed over, but, like, yeah, like, I mean, I don't know if it's ego or like self, like whatever, but it's like, yo, like I did put through work. If someone's just gonna get a boost based on like whatever, like that, like low key.
Dude,
that doesn't feel fair. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
To me personally.
Well, to many Asians, this is one of the reasons that Asians move forward and help push this lawsuit forward, because you got people like G here, and Yiji, and so many other people who were working, and going to tutoring and one thing after another and studying, burning the midnight oil and waking up at 5 in the morning. And I know some of you say, like, yeah, I studied hard too. You didn't study hard like that. You're not going till 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night and then going on Saturdays from the age of 7 all the way up through graduating high school. And so how is that fair? Like, that's...
Yeah, it's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't seem like it. You're penalizing.
I'm just seeing the time.
Yep. Do you want to do one? Can you go? I want to show you one more slide. Can you go one more? Just look at here. If you're poor, the orange and the gold is poor people, okay, or is wealthy people, okay. Parents are not poor. This is high. Okay, hang on. Colleges were less you were raised poor. Okay, but parents' income. Okay. If you have a BA degree and your parents are not poor, this is the value of your BA degree. Okay. If you have a BA degree and your parents are poor, a high school degree, hang on, God. Yeah, the BA degree. Here's the BA degree. Here's the BA degree. And your parents are poor. That's what your bachelor's degree on average is worth, this one. And if your parents are not poor, that's on average what your BA degree is worth. And if you have a high school degree, that's all, you don't go to college, and your parents are not poor, that's what it's worth. And if your parents are poor, that's what it's worth. So even if you get a college degree, that means if I look out in this classroom and I say, those of you who are poor, who come from poor families, on average, if we put you all together in a single group and we do the same thing with universities across the country, and we put all of you together who come from poor families and your families are poor, your degree is going to be worth much less over the course of your lifetime. Your earnings are going to be much less than all of you who come from wealthy families.
I don't really like this chart in general because it doesn't show what colleges everyone went to for the people who took statistics. It's where they went to, like, for work after, because you could go to college that's good and you're poor and you could still choose a job that you want to go into, but it doesn't pay as much.
Yeah.
So
which is fair.
I don't like the statistics, but it doesn't show exactly what it is because. Yeah, so
the idea then is one thing that comes into play is like, well, it's not just going to college, it's the college you go to.
Not just that, but it's also the career you go into after the college, because you could be poor and you could go for a career that pays well.
Okay. Anyone else?
But there's also an area where it doesn't, depending on the career you go for.
All right. Do you have a thought about that? Louis?
I want you to connect the conversation you all had about diversity, equity, and inclusion with...
Yo, hang on. Yo.
Just as a way to finish this conversation,
Yeah.
What is this conversation compared to the one about DE&I?
Well,
because it feels...
The problem with DE&I is we're trying to... We're trying to have these conversations that are incredibly complex, just like what Colin just said, what all three of you have been saying. We're trying to talk about these issues, and we say, hey, we're going to have these DE&I programs at our university or in our corporation or organization, or I work for the Red Cross, and we're going to do these DE&I initiatives. What does that mean? Because when we dig into it, and we think we're going to deal with equity, it's so complex. Like, what is fair? What is not fair? What's fair to one person is unfair to somebody else. What's fair to one group is not fair to another group. So we're going to be wrestling constantly over how to think about these issues. And there's nothing that anybody said that is a problem. It's like, yeah, it's fair, it's not fair. And so for me, y'all, I'm definitely going to lose this argument tonight.
Hands down, by the way.
Yeah. So I think for me, I like the fact that you all are saying these many different things, and we're really wrestling with how this is and what do you make sense of? Yeah. Anyway, let's say round of applause for you all. Good. Awesome. And you too. Awesome. G-Dog. Yo, by the way, hey, if you want more information on Shavers Creek,